In this video, I'll be resolving some issues with my workshop floor, but first, a very brief bit of background information. I moved into this workshop 2.5 years ago, and at the time it had a concrete floor, and standing up all day on concrete was really fatiguing on my legs and feet. So I invested in some rubber matting to put down. Before I could put that down though, we needed to deal with an old inspection pit. And by the way, I'll link to all of the videos about this stuff below in case you want to check them out. I filled the pit with rubble and concrete for reasons which were explained in the video about it, and then a self-leveling compound on top to level it up with the rest of the surrounding floor and get it nice and smooth. And then I laid all of the rubber matting using an adhesive, which didn't go too well initially as the glue I bought for the purpose was pretty useless in my opinion. But I ended up getting it all glued down using spray adhesive instead. And that has held up pretty well over the past couple of years, apart from the area over the inspection pit, which came unstuck over time. So I had to cut and lift the loose part, prime that self-leveling compound with an SBR bonding product, and then glue it all back down again. And since then, it's been fine. The problem is that I'm not really happy with the rubber matting itself, and here's why. 1. The rubber has ribs, and that makes sweeping up in here really difficult, as you can only really sweep in the direction of the ribs. So usually I'll sweep it all up into a long line across the workshop, and then sweep across the ribs to get the bulk of it, and then finish up with my Milwaukee backpack vac. Now, I always knew it was going to be an issue, but at the time I just had to get the cheapest thing that I could afford because all our money was tied up in actually buying the house that the workshop came with. But keeping those mats clean is far more annoying than I thought it would be. And with the benefit of hindsight, knowing that we plan to live here for the rest of our lives, I really should have waited until I could afford something better. 2. Often I want to kneel on my workshop floor if I'm working on a larger project, for example, and I cannot explain to you just how uncomfortable this rubber matting is to kneel on, but it is awful on the knees. And yes, I am aware that knee pads exist, but I don't really want the inconvenience of having to reach for them in my workspace. 3. While the rubber matting in here has helped a lot with aches and pains in my legs and feet, obviously a thicker flooring is going to make working in here even more comfortable. And 4, I've had a few polyurethane glue spillages on the matting, and once it gets a hold of those ribs, it is not coming up easily. Scraping it tends to bring up some of the rubber with it, and while I'm not too bothered about keeping the floor clean because this is a workshop, I have realised that the rubber matting isn't as durable as I'd like it to be. The new flooring that I've opted to go with are these 100% recycled vinyl PVC floor tiles for a few reasons, but mainly because I can simply lay them down right over the rubber matting and basically solve all my problems in one job, hopefully anyway. These interlocking tiles are 500mm square, 7mm thick, topped with an anti-slip surface, resistant to most chemicals, solvents and oil, and maybe we'll test that later in the video. And they can cope with an extreme amount of weight because they're designed with cars driving over them in mind, so wheeling around my worktop machines on them isn't going to be an issue. They arrived yesterday on a pallet and they are already assembled in 4s, so this should go down pretty quickly, but we'll see. I do have lots of stuff to move around and lots of cleaning to do. I bought these tiles with my own money, but just for full disclosure, I did get a discount when I spoke to the supplier, Garage Floors Direct, but I'm under no obligation to say nice things. I've also secured a 5% off promo code if you're interested in buying any of the products on the supplier's website, and as an affiliate I may earn a small commission from qualifying purchases. More detail in the description box below. Usually when laying floor tiles, you'll want to plan out the best positioning to ensure that you're running them parallel to the walls and to minimise unnecessary cuts, but the beauty of a floating floor system like this one is that you can simply start putting the tiles together and then reposition them if necessary. Blocking the tiles together involves a few hits with a mallet, and these tiles do expand and contract, so the recommendation is to leave a gap of around 5mm from the wall. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering about the poor lighting, this was filmed during a power cut thanks to Storm Eunice, so I'm relying on battery operated lights for much of this video. For this particular wall, I'm not even bothering with skirting boards because I have so much stuff against this wall anyway that no one will ever see the edges of the tiles, and I can always add it later if I decide to move things around. The mallet is useful for disassembling the tiles as well as assembling them. And it's times like these that I'm glad I put this workbench on wheels, even though I hardly ever move it. When I reached what I refer to as my services column, I decided I'd try using the multi-tool to make the cuts, which worked really well. I should be leaving a 5mm gap here too for expansion, but I decided not to, as I didn't really want to see a big ugly gap here, nor did I want to add any kind of trim or moulding to hide the gaps either. So if I do encounter any problems here in future, I'll just make relief cuts, again using the multi-tool if it turns out to be a problem. This flooring went down incredibly quickly. It was only really moving everything around and cleaning that made this job more time consuming. For the walls where I'd previously added skirting boards, I used a pry bar to pull them off, as they were only fixed in place with brad nails and some decorator's caulk originally. I can then pull out the nails one by one and fix them back in place later once all of the tiles are down. For cutting straight lines as needed here, I just took a measurement at one end and then the next, and then assembled enough tiles together. I can then mark up those measurements minus the 5mm expansion gap and use the track saw to cut them to size. These tiles can actually be cut simply just using a sharp utility knife, but if you've got power tools, it certainly speeds things up. So I've just managed to get up to my double UPVC doors, and they're scraping on the floor at the bottom. The door on the right just catches at the very tip there, and the door on the left won't even go over the floor tile. So I'm going to have to try and adjust the hinges, and hopefully I can get them sitting right. The problem here is that my concrete floor is anything but flat, so the doors are basically catching on a bit of a hump. So I played with the hinges for a while to do what I could. Hello, Keith from the future here. So about a week has passed and I just couldn't get enough adjustment out of these hinges to get the doors opening properly. So in the end I got my uncle over. He's a professional window and door fitter, and he toe and heeled the glaze units within the doors, and they're now as high as they can possibly be. This one now opens perfectly, and this one unfortunately doesn't. It's still hitting the tiles. So desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm using a packer and an offcut of floor tile to help me to cut off 2 or 3 millimeters off the bottom of the door using my multi-tool. It ain't pretty, but it worked. No one's gonna know. So this is the part of the project that I've been dreading. I now need to move all of this stuff. This actually turned out to be not as bad as I expected. Basically, I took away as much weight as possible, unscrewed the units from the wall, and where I had planned to actually remove the mitre station units and reinstall them later, instead I found that I could just use a wedge of wood to lift the units up to allow me to slide the tiles beneath. A jigsaw worked great for cutting the tiles too. And the crowbar came in handy where a little bit more leverage was needed. And here are the last tiles going down before I can put everything back where it lives. And the final job is to add skirting boards to the walls that are visible. I say skirting boards, it's actually architrave that I'm using here, but it'll do the same job. And later off camera I'll apply some caulk to fill any gaps. I'm testing the durability of the tiles on an offcut using things that I'm likely to spill on it over time, like polyurethane glue, solvent-based stain, India ink and PVA glue. I left them overnight. The polyurethane glue came off pretty clean. Most of the stain came off using some white spirit, although it did leave a bit of staining. The India ink surprisingly wiped away really clean. And the PVA glue had only partly set, so some of it was still wet, but the dry stuff also just popped right off nice and clean. Now a drop test. I dropped a hammer on it twice and basically it just bounced. It didn't cause any damage at all. Then I thought I could try a freshly sharpened chisel. And as you'd expect, that did cut into the tile, but not actually by that much. So if you're interested in flooring, I definitely recommend checking out the supplier that I used. There'll be a link in the description box below. And don't forget to use my promo code for 5% off if you want to save some money. They do a good range of different products, and the flooring is available in different colours too, so I'm sure you'll find something that is to your liking. I found out about the supplier through Dave at Grumpy's workshop. Dave did a video about his flooring too, and he chose a different type of tile to me. He has the CoinLock polypropylene tile, which are slightly smaller and may work out cheaper overall, but obviously do your own research. I'll leave a link to Dave's video and his channel in the description box below if you'd like to check it out, and you should, because it's a great channel. One final thing to mention is that you can also get these ramps which interlock with the tiles, which would be great for an entranceway. I didn't need to use these for my space in the end though. I'm very pleased with my new floor. It's been down about a week now and I've been in here almost every day. It went down quick and easy. It was quite fun to put together too, and I'm pretty sure it's going to resolve all my flooring issues. Please subscribe to my channel for more videos if you'd like to help support the channel. You'll find links below to my Patreon page and YouTube channel membership, where you can also get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free project plans and cut lists, and a name credit at the end of my videos. Thanks for watching.